Papa Boris here with the games to look at from the draft that I co-did with Dan. Man, this was such a fun evening. I learned so much from drafting with Dan. I feel like with just that one evening of coaching, I'm already a billion times better at playing Magic than I used to be. It's so awesome how much you can improve your performance in this game by actually analyzing your play and improving your skill. It's not just all about luck like a lot of people seem to think it is. So in this first match, we decided to keep a hand. It was actually one of the riskier hands of the ones that we kept. We do have this early draw, but this Day of Judgment's not coming online for a while. Dan made a great point, though, which is that this card, is good late game. So we've got time to find the planes, and there's plenty of card draw, some of which we've even drawn. So it's not a bad idea to keep this up. All right, our opponent actually chooses to play last, so he's kind of like me. We drop an island. And I will be using, by the way, the plural first person, because Dan and I were both here for these games. It's just that he's not here to do the commentary with me, but we both were playing, so don't feel weird that I'm talking about myself in the royal plural first person. That will resume back to normal with the next draft. He plays a mountain, does nothing. Draw an elite vanguard, so kind of sad that we can't play it. But at least we can get this Azure Mage down, and maybe next turn we'll get a Plains and be able to play down our guy. Alright, on this opponent's turn, alright, he drops a Plains, and he puts Pacifism on the Azure Mage. Now, Pacifism does not stop activated abilities, so, this is a sign that our opponent's not very good. That cannot be a good play. Alright, we draw Merfolk Looter. Sad that we still haven't gotten a Plains to play it and the Vanguard, but in the worst case scenario, if we do get Manuscript or something, we can loot away this Vanguard, because at this point in the game, he's getting to be somewhat irrelevant anyway. Our opponent plays a Forest, so he's playing Tricolor, which is, I think, a little sketchy in the basic formats. But he gets this Auramancer down, which is just not a great creature. So this is just, all kinds of good signals so far that our opponent's just not playing well. The Pacifism on the little Dinky Mage, the terrible creature, the 3 colors. If you're actually going to play 3 colors, you should play with better cards. Alright, no planes, but we do get an island. We loot it up and decide to get rid of this Vanguard. He's just not going to be helpful by this point. Once we do get the white mana, we're going to be playing the veteran anyway. So let's get this Fleetwing down and we can start to race. Opponent swings with the Auramancer. Of course, we're not going to block that. We do get another island. And at Dan's suggestion, actually, we draw a card with the Azure Mage before going on the attack. So this will help us see if looting is a good option, or if we get a Plains, we could play it, that kind of thing. We get the Aether Adept, so that's a good thing to look forward to. One thing I noticed all throughout the games is Dan was much better than I was at knowing when to attack with the looter. Right now, there's really nothing that we want to loot, so don't hold the little guy back. Even though he's a wimpy-ass 1-1 for 2, it's still worth attacking. 1 point of damage can make the difference, so we're technically outracing our opponent at the moment. Now, he's a little bit more mana flood, or screwed than we are. He's got his 3 lands, but notice we've got 5. This is the 5th turn. So he act of treasons the Merfolk Looter to loot with him. Clever play, but, kind of a desperate play as well. He throws out the Mesa Enchantress. Why you'd play this in Limited, I have no idea. So, yeah, this opponent's not so great. He does loot into a Forest, though, so good on him being kind of clever. And swings with the Auramancer. We draw a Cancel, which is good to see. And at this point, we just swing with our dudes. So there's nothing to loot away, and even if we did draw a card with the Mage, it's not like, there's nothing that we would play that would be relevant before combat. So at this point, this is something I don't really play often. I don't often play with counterspells, but I have to say, it felt really good. It felt really good to have Cancel mana open in case the opponent does drop something amazing, and the Aether Adept that we can play next turn, and we can draw a card with the Azure Mage if the opponent doesn't make us use the counterspell. So it feels really mighty, I have to say, to be playing control. So he drops his 5th land, puts down the Giant Spider. So that's kind of a big deal. It blocks our creatures, but not really an issue. So he swings with the Auramancer. We're happy to draw a card, get another veteran, and a Plains. So with this looting and the couple of draws from the Mage makes a really big difference. We get to our Plains just that much sooner. So now it's time to drop the Ether Adept. This is a creature I've been just consistently overrating, but god is it mighty. So now that spider goes back to our opponent's hands. He has to waste a whole nother turn casting him, and we continue to swing for 3. Whittling him down. Again, rather than playing the veteran, we decide to keep the cancel mana open, because who knows, he might have something big coming down. Possibly this was a mistake. I mean, we do have mind control to steal it, but at the same time, we're not in any kind of a rush either. Alright, the opponent does play the Stinger Fling Spider. It's a 2/5 with reach. Now, it doesn't have any targets. The Fleetwing has hexproof, but there's no point in letting that come down. We just cancel it. And now the opponent's going to have to waste another turn to play the Giant Spider, and then we can still mind control it. So good tidings for us. The opponent does play correctly here. He does not attack with the Auramancer, because now he's starting to lose the race. We get a Divination and play it for another Plains. Good times. And swing up. So, keeping this Looter open, I don't know if that was right. Maybe we should have just attacked with him? Oh, sorry. Wow, what am I saying? So the Looter can't attack anymore, my god. Because the 2/2 is back on defense. So yeah, so the Looter, we can't loot, but we can't attack either. And he decides to trade the Auramancer with the Adept, which is fine. The Adept did its job. And now we can put the Fleetwing down. It's better to get this flyer on the board and increase our clock rather than to hold back the 4 mana to draw a card. On his turn, he replays the Giant Spider. So take 2 for the Giant Spider. And also puts a Divine Favor on it. So not the mightiest thing in the world, but it is definitely holding our flyers at bay and giving him a little bit of life back. Alright, we decide to loot because, I don't know, I mean, it's risky. We could get another card and be forced to throw one of these veterans away, but with Mind Control online, we're swinging at him for 5, and we're going to have the Spider. These guys aren't necessarily that big of a deal. We might even have been able to loot away the Day of Judgment, to be honest. But we draw an island and are pretty happy to throw it out. And get another Ether Adept! So good thing that we looted. This gives us the Ether Adept now. So we play it. Now this Giant Spider is going on quite a journey. It came down once, it was Ether Adepted, it came down again, it was Ether Adepted, losing the Divine Favor, and now we can swing at him for 5 damage. No reason to loot now, we can just get some damage in. Alright, that very traumatized Spider, after the opponent plays a totally irrelevant Rampant Growth, comes back down once more, so he's been on quite a journey. He came down, Ether Adepted, came down again, Ether Adepted again, and now we are ready to mind control the son bitch. We steal the Spider. Notice the comment in the chat here, swear if I see another Ether Adept, ho-ho! But we do have enough damage to kill him now. This is exactly 7. So, that was game number 1. You know, kept a pretty mana light hand, but drew out of it, and especially with the help of the Looter and the card drawing guy, just a pretty solid, easy win. Alright, let's take a look at the next game. Same guy. I don't know why MTGO makes you click 15 billion times. So here's our hand. Super slow, but tons of mana and Divination and early flyers. Well, not early flyers, but turn 3 and turn 4 flyers make one a keeper. Plays a Plains and does nothing. Draw more mana. Plays a Mountain, does nothing. Draw this Veteran, which is nice, although we'll probably be putting the Skywinder Drake down first. Still nothing. He gets another Mountain, so he's missing green at the moment, but he gets down the mighty Auramancer. Holy gods. And we get more mana. Alright, so we're looking forward to this Divination at some point, but for now, let's start to race. He's hitting us for 2, we're hitting him for 3. Still doesn't have any green mana, and he now plays the Mesa Enchantress. This is just not a great card, because even if you play 1 enchantment, you're just getting back the card that you spent on this Mesa Enchantress. So you have to play 2 enchantments to start getting card advantage out of it. And it doesn't really help block anything, it doesn't go on the attack. I mean, this 2 toughness is really not relevant. There's very little that's going to swing at him for 1 damage. So it's just a really mediocre card to be playing with in this format. Well, he starts to race with the Auramancer. We draw the Pegasus, which is pretty cool. So at times like these, you have to be, careful, because we can, we have lots of decisions. We can play the Veteran, the Pegasus, the Divination. Everything is playable here. The right play here is, I think, what we chose to do, which is to play the Fleetwing. This is another flyer. We're now racing him for 5 damage a turn, and on the next turn we can actually play out the Veteran and the Pegasus. So this gets the most money for our mana. He gets another mountain. He still has no green mana, which might be troubling him, and he just passes the turn. Alright, we get veteran number 2. We swing up, get him down for 5 damage, play the veteran, play the Pegasus. Even if he did have another Wrath, let's say he had opened a Wrath as well, it's not the end of the world because we can divine our way out of it. So we might as well keep putting on the clock. Alright, he's got a pacifism on the Drake, which is much better now. He does draw a card with that Enchantress. So our clock is reduced a little, but we're still beating him. He's only got 2 damage on the board at the moment. And he also plays Kraken's Eye. This is bad play. Very, very bad play. So this is something that he sideboarded in, despite the fact that he has no blue spells of his own. He sideboarded in against us, just because we had some blue spells. Basically, to make this worthwhile, you need to be pretty much mono in a color and playing an opponent who is dominant in that color. Because the life gain is minuscule. This is not affecting the board in any way. And it's a card. It's a card that you're losing to gain a trivial amount of life and have no impact on the board. Bad card, and it was sideboarded in, so this opponent is making lots of bad plays. Alright, we get some more mana. Might as well play Divination before combat just to see if we have anything relevant. Alright, we do get the cancel, so we have cancel mana conveniently. And we swing at him for tons of damage. So, he's clearly getting desperate. He chumps the veteran with the Auramancer. But we still get him down for 4 damage. And have cancel mana open, so this is a pretty commanding position to be in. On his turn, he puts Divine Favor onto the Enchantress. Honestly, not a big deal. So we'll let him draw. So he draws the card. We can't actually stop that with the cancel, because the card draw is triggered off of casting the spell, not resolving the spell. And this Divine Favor is not really that big of a deal. So he can block the veteran now, whatever, and gain some life. He still doesn't really have a clock on us at all. Alright, so we draw this Manolith. If there was one mistake that both Dan and I made, it was including this Manolith in our deck. It was not really an all-star thing. No point in attacking with the veteran. It can actually block the Enchantress, so we just swing at him for 4 damage. We're pretty happy to do that. Can play veteran number 2. We still have cancel mana up and running. Life is good. On his turn, he still has no green mana, but he plays now Angelic Destiny. Okay, this is serious. So that gets the cancel. Sucks to be our opponent. The Mesa Enchantress is still a humble Mesa Enchantress. Nothing doing. Now, hilariously, on our turn, we draw the Unsummon. Wow, it would have been so awesome to have that in response to the Angelic Destiny. Of course, we didn't know we would draw this, but that's pretty sweet. We can pop up his dude. Even with the life gain from it being a blue spell, we actually have enough damage to kill him. The veterans beef up. 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10. We kill him. Pretty easy match. I want to point something out, though. Look at this chat. Can't believe you had answers for every single thing I played. This is what I'm talking about. This person's going away thinking he just got unlucky. He did not lose this match because he was unlucky. He lost this match because he was playing bad cards, making bad sideboarding decisions, and running off of a shaky 3-color mana base. He had these 7 cards here. I have to imagine some of those were green. So it was really, maybe just because our deck was so strong he would have lost anyway, even if he had played correctly. But honestly, there is so much this opponent can do to improve his game, and I feel sad that he is not going to do any of it, that he's going to be content to just wallow in self-pity and accuse his opponents of getting unjustly unlucky all the time. I only got like 3 rating points from this game, so he was a very, very low rated opponent, and it's just sad that he's probably going to stay that way if he keeps having that attitude. Alright, let's take a look at game 3. So, one thing that Dan helped me discover, which is amazing, I did not have any idea about this, in the tournament, like in the event window, you can actually double click on one of the other completed matches and look at all their games. You can actually scout out your opponent's decks, provided that you finish early enough and their match is completely done. So we actually knew what this guy's deck was. It was a really, really aggressive deck that was very heavy in black, with lots of Bloodthirst and a really good mana curve. So we knew that we needed to really try to stall him if we could, because he didn't have any super bombs or anything, but he was incredibly aggressive. Alright, he's playing, by the way, with an oversized deck. He's got 44 cards. I don't know, I guess he drafted a lot of good cards and wanted to play them all. But I have to feel like that was a mistake. Really, he should have probably shaved some stuff down. Playing 44 is not so great. But otherwise, though, what we saw in his first match, his deck is very strong. So he plays a Swamp, does nothing. We put down blue mana because we do have this Unsummon, which is quite handy. 3 lands, of course, is a little light, but we have the Looter and the Mage won't help us with the lands, but the Looter can help us maybe get more lands if we're desperate, as can the Divination. So we play the blue to get the Unsummon mana. He plays his other color, which is green, and drops down a Runeclaw Bear. Now, it's just amazing that I had no idea you could look at other people's games during the tournament to scout out their decks. So we know that he's super aggressive. We know he has Bloodthirst. So it's correct to unsummon that Runeclaw Bear to hold him back for a turn and give us some more time. Alright, on our turn, let's put down the Pegasus. Try to get, as much damage in as we can. He plays Plummet. Main deck Plummet. Ballsy play, but it does get rid of this Pegasus. And he is, unfortunately, land screwed. So good thing that we got rid of that bear, otherwise that would be swinging at us for damage now. So that unsummon really went a long way. So here we have some interesting decisions. We can, keep cancel mana up or play just about anything. We decide to divine, though, because mana is handy, and these looters and mages and things aren't things that we're in a particular rush to get down. So more mana is good. Now we'll be able to play 2 of our guys next turn. Alright, at 3 mana, he still just plays the Runeclaw Bear. So that's good. We get more mana now, that's very good. So we get down some nice mix here. We get the Azure Mage for card drawing eventually, and then the Merfolk Looter to start looting things away if we get a little bit mana flooded. On his turn, he jumps the bear at us. Obviously, we're not going to trade this mage away. He's still mana screwed, so we are getting a little bit lucky in this first game. He's mana screwed compared to us. Still, though, he gets this Blood Rage Vampire. It would have been a little scary if he had actually had another Swamp in his hand and the 4/4 lifelink Bloodthirsty guys, but we were a little bit lucky here. Maybe it would have been a correct play to chump the bear, just as a percentage-wise move, to avoid that big 4/4 from coming down that we currently don't have any answers to. But we lucked out in this case. It's only that guy, the 4/2. And on our turn, then, we have the luxury of attacking with the mage, because we figure he's probably not going to block. He's very aggressive. He's probably going to want to keep that 4/4 guy around. It's a little bit of a gamble to get some extra damage in, but it pays off. Thing is, you have to keep in mind, when you're deciding whether or not to attack with something, you need to consider whether you're going to block with that thing on your opponent's turn. We never want to block with the Azure Mage. So if we're pretty sure that he's not going to block it, might as well get the 2 damage in, otherwise this thing is just sitting there doing nothing. Now we do get our 5th mana, which is nice, because it lets us play Peregrine Griffin. This conveniently stops both of his creatures. He does get his extra Swamp now, but he's also got a Doomblade to kill off our flyer. So he's swinging pretty hard. This is 6 damage coming at us. It's kind of a big deal. We decide to loot here because we need answers, and we don't really need this island at the moment. So the Warhorse is nice. It'll stop the bears, and it can trade with his big guy. Alright, so here we also draw into Mind Control, which is nice, but our life total is healthy enough that we are not in any kind of a rush. We swing with both of our guys because we're not going to be blocking with them, and then play down the Armored Warhorse. So this is kind of cool. We have the cancel mana in case anything goes awry, and the Warhorse at least should stop the bears from attacking. Now he makes an interesting play. He attacks with both of his creatures, which is sacrificing the bear. Now there's 2 possibilities here. Either he has that kind of weak instant, which we didn't see in the games that we watched, the Ring Flesh, which is like the black version of a combat trick, which would allow either one of these creatures to kill off the Warhorse. Or he's just super aggressive and wants to get that 4/4 lifelinker down, even willing to sacrifice a bear in the process. We decide to gamble that he's doing this to try to get the lifelinker down, in which case the better play is to get rid of the bigger guy. Because if that damage is going to go through anyway, if we're still going to have that big thing to deal with, or cancel, might as well get this big guy off the board, because it's much less scary than the bears. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Actually, he was just planning to do the Ring Flesh. So we decide to cancel this, because the cancel in this case is effectively, given that this Warhorse is going to die no matter what, this cancel is effectively acting as removal against the Blood Rage Vampire. So even though Ring Flesh doesn't seem like a particularly huge spell to cancel, when it's resulting in the death of one of your opponent's creatures, it's worth doing. So they trade, although given that that's what he was planning to do anyway, maybe blocking that Runeclaw Bear and killing it off would have been better. He taps the remainder of his mana and plays Luring Crocodile. So he had Bloodthirst. Oh, he did have Bloodthirst that he wanted to get down. And this thing Island Walks for 3 damage a turn. So we're now on a 4-turn clock. We draw the Alabaster Mage, and at this point, actually, we mind control that Island Walker. Might not seem like the biggest creature in the world to mind control, but it is going to kill us in, a few turns, and we don't have a whole lot of answers to it. We're basically counting on the Aether Adepts to get rid of that thing, or the Unsummon to slow it down. Alright, so we swing at him for 3. He plays the Dungrove Elder, which is, bomb-ish, but with only 2 forests, not too scary. And he also has a Disentomb to get back the Blood Rage Vampire. So we know what one of these 2 cards is. It is that Blood Rage Vampire, the 3/1 that Bloodthirsts into a 4/2. He doesn't attack into the Crocodile, obviously. That would be silly. And we get a Plains. So we play the Alabaster Mage, because why not? We also play the Plains down. I was thinking of looting this away, but Dan's pointed out that we're getting up to so much mana that we can just use the Mage to straight up draw cards if we get enough mana down. So that's a good lesson. I would have looted the Plains away, but I think it was correct to get extra mana, so we can activate the ability and draw cards and do all this other good stuff. Alright, he has the Glade Cover Scout, so not scary at all, and he still can't attack. He now puts down the Blood Rage Vampire without Bloodthirst, and at this point he's tapped out, past the attacking phase, no reason not to just draw a card here. It is a land. And again, I would have wanted to loot this away, but Dan recommends keeping it because now we can draw cards twice, if need be. Alright, now with 2 lands, Dan agrees that, yeah, getting rid of one of those is good, so we loot into a Veteran, which is nice. Play down our other land, play down the Veteran. Weirdly, we actually have a stalemate on the ground here. We have a stalemate on the ground. He has no islands for this to island walk over, and we're getting all of our land dudes because he killed both of the flyers that we played. So there's no profitable way to attack. We decide to pass the turn. He's still at 4 lands. He plays the Warpath Ghoul, so contributing to the stalemate on the ground. But we can draw cards, which is pretty sweet. Plains, not so sweet. Aether Adept, better. Now this Aether Adept is unfortunately not so great, because nothing actually breaks the stalemate here. It's just a time delaying thing, so we decided to draw a card to see if we get anything better. It's just a Plains, sadly. And here we decided to do an experiment, because Dan and I weren't sure how it worked. We thought that lifelink, each separate instance of lifelink would count double, so we could make a creature double lifelink, so to speak. That makes the trade worthwhile if we get, 6 health off of it. Unfortunately, apparently, even though it used to work that way, where different instances of lifelink would trigger separately, it does not anymore. We only get 3 life off of this trade. Alright, he swings with bunches of guys. Well, at this point, we just decide to block the Elder with the Crocodile, because that will kill it outright, and the Warpath Ghoul with the Alabaster Mage. We basically just trade in the most profitable way as possible, not trying to do anything fancy or tricky. So he smacks us for 3 damage, and now he has the Vampire Outcasts, the 4/4 with lifelink. Here we loot, because we don't need that many planes. We certainly don't need 3 more planes. And we get the Elite Vanguard, not super relevant at this point in the game, but it does trade with the Bear. And the Aether Adept bounces the scary guys back into his hand. Now we can swing for 6 damage. Alright, he's down to 6 hit points, and we even have a chump blocker for his Bear. And we play a Plains, because why not? Alright, he plays the Warpath Ghoul down, interestingly not putting the Outcasts back. Although I'm not sure how he's going to trigger Bloodthirst for him. But he puts down the Ghoul. We can draw a card at the end of our turn. It's an island, so really drew quite a lot of land. I guess you could say we were flooded, but we are down to just 13 cards in the deck. So that's, I guess it's not that big of a deal to see 11 of your 17 lands when you've drawn almost 3/4 of your deck. Alright, we do get this Drake down, so finally we'll be able to start flying at him. Now, here we make a slight miscalculation. We loot, but really, or maybe this was me clicking the Merfolk Looter before Dan could stop me. Really, with so much mana, we should have just played Azure Mage and drawn a card. Might as well have done that, because we just have so much mana. So we swing with the team. He really needs to do some blocking. He needs to block at least one of the creatures, and since we basically trade with everything, There's no reason not to. He decides to do a trade to completely clear off the board. So he's still at 6 damage, and I put down the Skybinder Drake. Alright, he plays the Vampire Outcasts back. Now at this point, I do make kind of an error. So we draw with the Azure Mage to get Manalith. Again, not super helpful. Notice here, we actually have 3, 5, 6 power. So if we draw something that allows us to get rid of this Vampire Outcast, we would have enough damage on the board to kill him. Well, I make an error here. I actually loot with the looter first, which takes away a critical single point of damage. Well, we loot into an Aether Adept. So after playing the Aether Adept, the Vampire Outcasts go on another journey. This is their second time being bounced. And now we only have 5 damage to swing at him with. If I'd kept that looter from looting, he would be dead right now. So we've given him an extra turn to draw an out. That was a poor play. He does not have one though, so we win on the next turn. So, strong aggressive deck, but he did get mana screwed. And actually put up a really good fight, nonetheless. So it's good that our deck was strong enough to be able to withstand him. So let's take a look at how the second game went. So this time we had the mulligan. We had a 1-land hand, so we mulliganed. This is not the most super amazing thing, although with the Aether Adept and the cancel, we can maybe buy some time if he's more lucky with his mana this time. Alright, now note, it's an important point, is you have to play the planes here. You have to play the planes, because in case you draw another planes, you can actually play the Armored Warhorse. If you play an island and then draw planes, it's just really sad. So it's, again, not super likely, but it's one of those little percentage plays that if you make at all times, eventually you'll get lucky and you'll be able to take advantage. He has nothing on turn 2, and we actually do get the planes. So hooray for going second. We get the Armored Warhorse down. Alright, in turn 3, he's at least not mana screwed this time, but his aggressive deck's not really coming through for him. He's got nothing to cast. Alright, so let's get some damage in with the Warhorse. And one disadvantage of playing 2 planes on an island as opposed to 2 islands and a plains is that we actually can't have cancel mana. So let's get the Merfolk Looter down and maybe consider gluing away some of these islands at some point. Oh yeah, one interesting aside, I forgot to mention this in the first game. He used that Ring Flesh on the Warhorse to kill it in combat. He chose, one of the reasons that we thought that the Ring Flesh wasn't in his hand is that he was letting the Looter and the Azure Mage just live, even though he could have killed them at any time. Those are probably stronger cards to get rid of than the Warhorse, actually. So, not sure if you disagree, tell us in the comments, but it seems like he really should have used the Ring Flesh to kill the creatures that have nice activated abilities, and that would have ultimately impacted the game more strongly than this Warhorse did. Anyway, on his turn, he plays a land and does nothing, so he's really slow. He's saving up for some kind of a big bomb or something. The Aether Adept can't come down because it is going to have to target one of our own creatures if it does, so we were happy to swing at him for 3 and watch what he does. Well, he's definitely not mana screwed this time, and he plays the Vampire Outcast for a piddly, making it a piddly 2/2. We decide to cancel it. Maybe it would have been smart to save the cancel for something stronger, especially since our Warhorse can actually go attack into the Outcasts. The problem is that if we try to race against the Outcasts, it's really like a 4-life swing because he's dealing 2 damage to us and giving 2 life back to himself. So we decide to go for the tempo move here and just cancel those things. Well, he has Disentomb to get them right back. So that's actually okay. It means that basically any creature we would have canceled, he could have Disentombed it back. The only thing that cancel would have been good for was to cancel a non-creature spell, and we didn't know he had the Disentomb from our scouting of the game. Or maybe we did, but we just forgot about it. Well, at any rate, he's tapped out, so we are happy to loot into a Pegasus, swing with the Warhorse, and put the Pegasus down. Dan made me do something funny here. So on his turn, when he cast a big spell, the Dungrow Elder, Dan told me to tap some blue mana, and then like untap it to make him think we had another cancel. I don't know if anyone's going to fall for that, but I thought that was amusing that Dan engages in such mind tricks. Alright, we get the Alabaster Mage down, which is cool. Now, unfortunately, with 3 forests, this Elder is big enough to stop the Warhorse, but at least the Pegasus can fly in and also give us 1 instance of lifelink. Alright, he is not missing any land drops this time, and he can put down the Outcast. This is a mistake. He, I guess, is really excited to play them, so he puts them down, then swings with the Elder. Perhaps he was expecting us to double trade with the Elder, the Warhorse and the Alabaster Mage for the Elder, But I don't think we would have gone for that. We know he's got the ring flesh to have saved his Elder. And even if he doesn't, we're giving up 2 creatures for one of his. So that was not a good idea, because actually we decided to let it go through. And had he held off on these outcasts, they would have been 4/4 instead of 2/2. Alright, we draw an island, so it is looting time. The veteran is a nice sight to see. And we are happy to attack with both of our creatures. We give lifelink to one of them, the warhorse. And then we can drop down the veteran. So because this is just a 2/2 rather than a 4/4, we don't really want to Ether Adept it. He's going to have bigger threats, and the veteran is quite capable of defending against that thing. Right, at 8 mana, he Mind Rots. Good play. A lot of people might have been holding like a land here or something, or a lot of people wouldn't play a Mind Rot when the opponent only has 1 card, but this does allow him to get rid of the Ether Adept. Then he concedes. Now, that seems like it was premature, because he can hang back with this Elder, which is a 4 defense creature, and all we got is 2 damage coming at him. So even if these 2 cards were land, he had time to find outs. He knows that our hand is empty, and we have currently just a 4-turn clock. So I guess it's a little bit less than 4 turns if we get him down low and then swing with the team. But yeah, this was a premature cancellation, or concession. He might have had a small chance that he stuck with it. Alright, we go into the finals. Now, we are sad to see this guy because he has an amazing deck. So it's also black. He's got red paired with it. Very heavy on black, just like the previous deck was, which is not surprising considering how much black was going around the draft. What's scary is he's not an aggressive deck. He's got tons of removal and tons of bombs. I think we saw like 2 Sengir Vampires and some like ridiculous mythic 6/6 Bloodthirst flying thing. So it's not the Runescarred Demon, it's one that has like flying and trample. I don't remember what it was. It was scary. So against him we needed to play more aggressively because we knew he had some bombs going on. Alright, we get a hand with lots of great cards but only 1 island, so we have to mulligan against this very strong deck. And we get a hand that's pretty sketchy, like we only are at 2 lands here. Granted, the mind control could be nice, but we don't have the looter or any other way to get us out of mana screw. So, not an auspicious beginning. Well, he starts off slow. We put down our Lawkeeper. I can hope that plus the Unsummon can buy us hopefully a little bit of time if we need to. Swamp number 2 comes down. We get another Plains. And the Lawkeeper goes to work. Alright, on his turn, he still plays nothing. Again, we know that he has a somewhat slower deck, but a very strong one. And the Lawkeeper continues to ping away. We decide here that because his deck is full of bombs, we want to play aggressively, so we put the veteran down. Now he does have Sorin's Thirst for it. This appears to be a mistake, however. Seems like the Lawkeeper is a better target for the Thirst, because he does have so many bombs that this Lawkeeper is just going to be able to, you know, bring down. Possibly he had other removal on hand and just wanted to kill the Lawkeeper at his leisure and buy himself more life by stopping the damage of the veteran. But at any rate, it seems like the Lawkeeper is a better creature to kill. Alright, he's not missing his land drops or anything, but he's not playing anything either, so he's saving up. We continue on with the Lawkeeper. It's done 3 damage now, 2 of which were paid back with Sorin's Thirst. And let's get that Fleetwing down again. This is safe, it can't be removed because of Hexproof, and we really want to work him down as much as we can. He does not miss a land drop. And he plays the Blood Ogre, which I guess he must have just top-decked, or else he would have played it on one of the previous turns, but we're pretty happy to see that, and not, for example, a Sengir Vampire, although we could mind control it. So, definitely an inoffensive beginning. This is a pretty good position to be in. We can fly over with the Fleetwing, we can play the Divination, leaving a white mana open, draw 2 cards, one of which is an island, getting us fully out of mana screw, and now we still have enough mana to tap down that Blood Ogre, and keep at it with the race. Interestingly, in response to our tapping it, he shocks, or excuse me, Chandra's outrages the Gideon's Lawkeeper. So yeah, he couldn't have played Chandra's outrage during our turn, because he had paid 3 mana, one of which was red, to play the Blood Ogre, but he decides that's enough tapping, and that's the turn. He plays another mountain. Alright, here, after attacking, we decide to put down the big guy. We can put down both the Drake and the Looter as well, if we so wish. However, there's no card that we want to loot away. So in the meantime, it's a better play, as Dan pointed out, to just put this Griffin, which can stop his Blood Ogre from getting into us. He unfortunately has a Doomblade, so that's that for our flyer. This Peregrine Griffin has a very short lifespan, despite being foily and pretty. Alright, he's not missing any land drops. He's got 7 mana. What does he get for it? Warpath Ghoul? That's totally fine. So here it's clear he's flooded without his bombs, but we still know that he has bombs he could draw into, so the game is far from over. He gets 2 damage in, and we swing at him with our Hexproof Flyer. We got another Fleetwing, which is good, but now it is better to put down 2 creatures, especially because the Skywinder Drake deals more damage, and we're getting to the point where we just want to erase him as quickly as we can. Alright, he gets land number 8. He's good and flooded here. He swings for 5 damage, though, which we can't do anything about. And taps out for a shock on the Sky... Or not taps out, but taps a red for a shock on the Skywinder Drake. The good news is we know he's in top deck mode, and with Mind Control, we're going to win the damage race. We decide to loot away an island that we draw, swing down for 2 damage, and put down a Fleetwing. So we're in pretty good shape. We can unsummon something if we need to desperately buy some time. We can also Mind Control something if he puts down a creature. So we have pretty much a winning clock here. He draws a card. He swings for 5 more damage. We decide to block the Warpath Ghoul. Maybe that was incorrect. I don't know. I guess we are 3 turns away from killing him with our damage. We're both dealing 5 damage to each other. So we decide to trade away while the trading is good. Now it's 3 damage on our part to just 2 damage from him. And he plays a Tormented Soul, which cannot block it and is unblockable. So not the greatest of top decks. Alright, we loot away that island. Swing down with the Fleetwing. And play the Pegasus. So now we're definitely winning the race. We have a healthy life total. Clear from any burn, even after he swings at us. Unless, actually, a Fireball. We did not really think about Fireball at all. Let's see. Had he had Fireball, he can do what? 1, 2, 3, 7 damage with it? We cannot cancel it. And yeah, if he had had Fireball, he could have swung and killed us right here. So we were not playing around that. Maybe we should have been, and maybe we should have used this Mind Control to steal his Blood Ogre. We figured that we should save that for a bigger threat that he might lay down, but in doing so, we didn't play around the Fireball. I don't remember seeing any going around the draft, so it would have had to have been something that he opened in a pack. Well, he gets 3 damage down. Gets really excited to play a Bloodthirst creature, but he has to wait because that was first strike, and then the second strike, and then he gets not the Bloodthirst, but just a Devouring Swarm, which can block the Pegasus. Alright, important moment here. This Devouring Swarm can sacrifice creatures at will, including itself, so it's basically a counter to our Mind Control. This is why we actually unsummon it right now, and then on our turn, after swinging for 6 damage, Mind Control his Blood Ogre. It's not a great target for Mind Control, but Mind Control does not work anymore, because he has that sacrifice ability. Well, he is down to 4 life, so that could go the distance depending on what he top decks here. Swings at us for 1 damage. Plays a Gravedigger to get back the Warpath Ghoul. Luckily, he doesn't have anything too great in his deck. And then he puts down the Devouring Swarm. So we know exactly what's in his hand. It's a Warpath Ghoul, nothing too scary. But he does have this Devouring Swarm, which can block, or which can trade with our flyers. So we're going to have to take another couple of turns to kill him. Except then we draw the Aether Adept. It was just my great shame the entire match that I had thought before that the Aether Adept was not a particularly amazing card. So here it just wins the game. It can bounce back his Swarm, and then the Flyers are going to go in for the last 4 damage, the Pegasus and the Fleetwing. So Aether Adept, oh my god, it's ridiculously good. Alright, so we win the first match, feeling like we got a little bit lucky perhaps because he was flooded. But then again, we didn't particularly draw anything super amazing ourselves, so it was pretty fair. But we know we're going to have to fight for it in the next game, because again, he does have a pretty strong deck. And what a game this was. So here's the game we keep. We have early aggression in the form of the Pegasus, this Peregrine Griffin, and the Aether Adept to look forward to. Probably neither of these guys is going to survive that long, but, you know, optimism reigns supreme. Alright, we play a Plains, just so that if we do draw a Warhorse, we might want to play that instead. He draws a Mountain, plays it, doesn't do anything. For 2 mana, we get our Pegasus down. He has Shock. Pegasus dies. Plays a 3rd Mountain. Noteworthy here that he's a pretty heavy black deck, but he's only got mountains. So he's a bit color screwed here. So again, we're getting a little bit lucky with mana. Alright, we're happy to put down a Skywinder Drake. Very good racer. He gets us the first of the swamps that he'll want, but he only plays the Onyx Mage, which is not particularly scary to us. Most of our stuff's not going to be touching his stuff anyway. Alright, now we're getting actually quite a bit of land, which is a little bit unfortunate. But for the time being, we have things to do. We have the Fleetwing to play, we have the Griffin to play, and the Aether Adept's going to come down pretty soon, we figure, to bounce back one of his dudes. So we're racing, we're winning the race, life's pretty good. Alright, he swings, nothing happens. We decide to allow, by the way, this Bloodthirst, because we figure that the Aether Adept will be able to cancel it, and then we'll know to block with the Fleetwing if need be. Alright, he does not have Bloodthirst, but he has the Sengir Vampire, which again is something that we did know about. That's pretty gigantic. We draw our cancel just a turn too late, and now here we had an interesting choice. So we could have just played the Griffin, and then let the Vampire get in 1 attack. The Griffin does stop the Onyx Mage from attacking at least, because the Griffin has first strike. So we would just take 4 damage, and then on our next turn, we could play a Plains, and with 6 mana, we were thinking to like play the Aether Adept, and then the cancel. Hilariously though, with just 3 islands, we couldn't play Aether Adept and cancel, because that would require 4 islands, so even though we have the correct number of mana, to the tune of 6, we actually don't have the right colors of mana to be able to bounce the Vampire and then cancel it. As a result, we decide to just Adept right away, bounce the Vampire back, make him waste another turn playing it down, and then we swing for 5 damage. So it's sad that we cannot cancel it when it comes back down, but at least we have this Griffin, which would prevent him from racing with his Vampire. He couldn't attack with it, because he'd be hitting us for 4, we'd be hitting him back for 7. Not a good trade. Well, of course, he does put the Vampire back down, and he doesn't want to get rid of his Onyx Mage for the Adept, because the Adept did its job. Here we get Day of Judgment. Very interesting. We don't actually want to use it, though. He's got 3 cards. We have 3 cards, one of which is the Day. And right now, what we can do is just simply pass the turn. Now, this was interesting. This is, again, another really good play Dan suggested that I wouldn't have made. I would have just put down the Griffin to stop the Vampire from trying to race us. But Dan figured if we just pass the turn really quickly as though we have nothing, as though we're flooded, we could bait the opponent into putting more creatures down onto the board so that the Day of Judgment would become more potent. Alright, well, he swings with the Vampire first. Here I thought of maybe like chump blocking it with the Fleetwing, swinging back with the Skywinder Drake, hoping he would put something down anyway, and then playing Day of Judgment to get that extra 3 damage in. Dan recommended it, and we instead did the following, which is that we double blocked the Vampire. So it's a 2-for-1 trade, but if we're playing Day of Judgment anyway, well then it doesn't really matter if we make that trade. So this basically gives up, you know, 3 damage, but to kind of make sure that the Vampire comes off the board, allowing us the option of, say, reserving this Day of Judgment for stricter times. I'm still not sure what the correct play was. I still kind of like my idea of chumping, getting in for 3, and then Day of Judgmenting. This is, I guess, a little bit less committal because if you do chump block, then you have to Day of Judgment afterwards because you're just in bad shape. Whereas if you get rid of it, you can, you have a little bit more flexibility depending on what you draw. Okay, he does not have any combat tricks. Or excuse me, he does have combat tricks. He has the Sorin's Thirst on the Skywinder Drake. So what this is going to do is it's going to kill off the Drake, and then also kill off the Fleetwing, and put a +1/+1 counter on the Vampire. Whoops! So he does get that in. We swing with the Adept. He decides to block and trade. But interestingly, again, on Dan's advice, we do nothing here, hoping that maybe we can take a swing from the Vampire and persuade him to put down 1 more creature. Well, he deals 5 damage to us. He doesn't actually need to put anything else down, because this Vampire, if we do nothing, is going to win the game. But we did open this Day of Judgment. No one else in the draft knows it exists, and we are lucky that he decides to play 1 more creature down. So when all is said and done, we end up with 2-for-1 trade. The Day of Judgment gets rid of both of his guys. Had we gone with my plan with the chump blocking, it still wouldn't have worked because he still could have Soren's Thirsted the Sidewinder Drake, so it all would have been the same in the end anyway. Alright, well, we got nothing here. Here, you could play this Veteran. It's very tempting to do that, to put the creature back down and repopulate the board first. However, we do know that he's got Gravediggers and tons of mana. And Dan's like, I remember him saying, oh, look how quickly he's casting his mana. Look how excited he is to play the Gravedigger. Get back this Angry Vampire, have a creature on the board, and be ready to race. So here it's very nice that we have the cancel. Stop any of that funny business. He does still have a Bloodseeker, which is kind of irritating. We hate drafted one of these, but we let the other one go by, and I think that might be the one that we let go by, the first one. Alright, we got a Plains, which is not super helpful, but at least we can play out our hand. So we got our Griffin, which stops the Bloodseeker from attacking. We have the Veteran, which can attack, although this does cost us 2 life. So he's got 2 cards, we have none, but we have better board presence. So it's pretty tricky here. He gets up to 7 mana, plays the Soul, which is not super threatening in all cases, but this is 1 damage a turn, plus we're taking a damage for every time we play a creature, so it's actually a little bit scary in this case. He's got a pretty good situation. Even if we draw our Mind Controls, there's nothing particularly great to take, but we would have to use it because this combination might screw us. Alright, we draw an Island, which is pretty sad. And we decide to race him out. He's dealing, 2 damage, we're dealing 5. It seems worth it. So finally this Peregrine Griffin, this foily bird, gets to do some attacking. We get 5 damage on him. And pass, because now we really do have nothing. Alright, he's going to swing for 2 damage. And play the Bat. This puts us in kind of an interesting position. Maybe we should have kept back the Griffin. So that we could deal 3 to his 0, as opposed to 5 to his 2. It's the same net difference, except that our life total is starting to get to the point where it's very precarious. And now we get a Plains, which is not helpful. This is very awkward, notice, because if we swing with everything, he can swing back for 4, getting us down to 5 hit points. We still need 1 more attack to, to be able to win. Or excuse me, if we swung with everything, we would force him to have to, chump block next turn, because then we'd have enough damage to kill him. So we'd have to leave something back. But if we let too much more damage come through, we're going to get to the point where this Bloodseeker is just stopping us from putting any more creatures on the board, which of course would be very bad. We don't have any way except for Unsummon and an Ether Adept to try to bounce this thing, and then even then it's only temporary. So we decide here to just attack with only the Veteran, keeping the Griffin back for defense to stop some of the bleeding. He lets it go through, goes down to 6, we play an Island, and on his turn, he actually has Doomblade for the Griffin, so we were in a pretty tough situation anyway. I guess, all things considered, we should have just attacked with it, but then he could have Doombladed it anyway. So I think we made the right play. It's just unfortunate that he has this, because now we're in serious trouble. Now he swings for 4 damage, we're down to 5, thankfully he doesn't play anything, and thankfully we do get Divination to help us maybe draw an answer of some sort. Well, these aren't exactly answers, so the Looter is handy, but doesn't come online right away. At least, though, this allows us to attack with the Veteran and put down the Fleetwing and the Looter. Now, we have to note, this is a very tense moment here. If we play these both down, we take 2 damage. However, if we don't play down the Fleetwing, this Dusk Hunter Bat is going to deal 2 damage. So, the Fleetwing saves us something. And then the Merfolk Looter, we take a damage from that, but again, if we don't play it down, we're going to take a damage from the Bloodseeker when it attacks anyway. So, it's good to take that trade and get these creatures down. Now, possibly, we could have kept the Looter back and had an extra hit point that way, because maybe he really can't attack with everything, because this Veteran does have enough damage to kill him outright, so maybe this Looter is something we could have held back and not taken the extra damage. The thing is, if he has a Shock, this Tormented Soul can deal 1 damage now, and he can kill us with Shock. If we had held the Looter back, then he wouldn't have been able to do that. Although if we had held the Looter back, he could have swung with everything, had 2 damage guaranteed to come through, and then still killed us with Shock. So yeah, it looks like this was the right play to put the Looter down, because it doesn't actually make a difference if he has the removal to kill us. It doesn't save us, and it doesn't hurt us if he doesn't have the removal. Well, he only attacks with his 1 unblockable guy. Now we're in Shock range. Does he have Shock? No, he does not have Shock. We draw Plains. Well, we can try to loot out of it. We get another Veteran. Here's where things get very awkward. So we can't actually play the Veteran, because then this Tormented Soul will kill us. However, fortunately, we do have some creatures who can attack. Now, sadly, we can't attack with both of them, because if we do attack with both of them, he can chump block the veteran, let this 2 damage go through. He will go down to 1 hit point, and then on his turn, he will swing at us back for 1 point of damage, which is very important because if we play this veteran now, that 1 point of damage will kill us. So we can't play the veteran, but we can at least attack with our veteran. Oh yes, and again, just to be very clear, if we had attacked with both of these guys, he can chump block the veteran with the Bloodseeker and then swing back and let the Aven and Fleetwing go through. Then we have no blockers for his bat, and he'll just kill us with the bat. He doesn't even need to draw a shock. Here, though, we play the veteran, and if he chump blocks with the Bloodseeker, we can block the bat with the Fleetwing, and the veteran can then come down without costing us a life, meaning the Tormented Soul can't kill us. The correct play here, I think for him, would have actually been to chump block with the bat. That way, he can still attack with the Tormented Soul, and it stops us from playing any creatures. However, he decides to chump block with the Bloodseeker and the bat to kill off our veteran. I don't think that was the right play because it's very committal, so now we can play the veteran, and he needs to draw a burn to be able to beat us. He does not, and this Tormented Soul will just be 1 damage shy of killing us. So I'm not sure if it was right of him to double block the veteran like that. I think just chumping it and keeping 1 creature around would have been the better play, just to stop us from playing any creatures. But tell us what you think in the comments. This was the second game of the final match, so we went 6-0 in this draft. And I have to say, like, if Dan hadn't been here giving me advice, I would definitely not have built this deck, and I would definitely not have gone 6-0 in this draft, because those Ether Adepts wouldn't have been in the deck, and that Cancel probably wouldn't have been in the deck. I'd like to think I would have had the Mind Controls and stuff, but I would have been playing with some subpar blue cards out of my fear of taking the Ether Adepts for bad mana issues. The one mistake I'm pretty sure that Dan and I made was playing that in Manalith. It was really not good. Our curve was too low, and we had enough card draw and looting that we could just draw out of any mana issues. So when we didn't need mana fixing, and when we didn't need to ramp up, it was not a good card. I'm not sure what we could have played in its place. I know we didn't take it over anything great, but maybe we could have tried to squeeze in like Mighty Leap or something like that. That might have actually, been a dead card, but would have been more likely to be of use to us in the games. Alright, well, thank you for watching. Thanks again to Dan for offering such helpful coaching and insight to improve my game. I now have tremendously increased respect for the blue color in 12th edition, and I expect to be playing it much more often with these cool cards like Ether Adept and Cancel. That was lots of fun, and I'll see you guys in the next draft.